now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. As everybody is smacking on their Canadian bacon, we are.
I wish.
I did have a Canadian Canadian bacon cheeseburger for lunch. So
Nice.
Oh, nice try. Yeah,
Had a glass of Canadian whiskey.
And we are.
I wish I had.
And we are continuing our John Candy themed month, where we are going to be discussing one of John Candy's second to last films. That my buddy Forrest will tell us all about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the film that we just either saw or recently saw?
They did. Thank you, Dave. Actually, this is okay. So it's interesting. This was actually his second to last movie that he completed, that John Candy completed, but the last one to be released. 1995, Canadian Bacon, directed by Michael Moore. His only attempt at a scripted narrative at a narrative feature.
Right.
And the story goes: a U.S. president with sagging approval ratings gets talked into boosting his approval ratings by fabricating a war against Canada. And a sheriff of a small upstate New York the sheriff of a small New York town, played by John Candy, leads a pack of troops to go into battle.
It's one word for them.
A ragtag group of troops to go into battle. including a former factory worker who had been laid off from his job.
Weren't they all formerly at that factory? I got the impression that
Candy
they all
worked at the sheriff's department.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that they ended up working at the factory at first as well, because they even make the comment at the beginning, it almost pays as much as it did we worked at the factory.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, when we first meet, well, I guess we'll get into it. Well, let's just go with first impressions first. Go with first impressions. Brandon, is this your first time watching Canadian Bacon?
It is not. So I wanted to say this because I know that others will probably be looking into it. But I watched this mainly because I had seen Roger and Me, which was, I think he only really had one or two documentaries out at the time, because I think this was before Bowling for Columbine.
Yes.
And it was, I think it was only Roger and Me and the Big One were the only two that were out at the time. And both of them were very different takes. If you look at Michael Moore in the past, most of them, there's a lot of background noise going on.
Well, unfortunately, we have a lot on this side, so I guess I'll go ahead and mute for now.
Essentially, to me, they were very interesting pieces because I thought that they colored the idea of the film, because both of those were pieces about factories moving out of the U.S. and kind of that shame on people moving to Mexico to gain cheap labor over there, that kind of exodus, which was a lot of what colored this. But I watched it with a lot of Michael Moore in mind and was highly disappointed in it. Matter of fact, that was one of my least favorite films that he had made at the time, and my least favorite film of John Candy's at the time. I thought to myself, with such a great cast, how could such a terrible film be made? Now, and I was expecting some sort of some sort of greater level, similar to those first documentaries that I'd watched. Something that might be more profound, but this was a lot baser. and a lot more sarcastic in its humor um, than I was used to. So, fast forward a couple of years to the present. I think I've watched it one more time in between, but I don't remember. I've watched it again without that coloration in mind, and I actually liked it much more. Leaving Michael Moore out of the equation mentally helped me tremendously because I was looking at it as not as a Michael Moore movie that was a like a documentary Michael Moore style, but just as a basic movie, John Candy movie. And I thought it was okay. I thought it had a lot of fun pieces to it, a lot of good jokes, and there is something about like a bunch of former factory workers buying munitions being sold off of the old thing because of the Cold War drop.
That auction scene was great.
So to me, it's colored by a lot of the political past time. Well, basically, it's colored by its time period. And I admit, being able to lift Michael Moore out of it and just watch it as a straight film helped me tremendously to going from I don't really like this film to it's okay. It's actually a pretty funny film overall.
Okay, Jake, is this your first time watching Canadian Bacon?
This is not. Honestly, I can't remember exactly when I first came across this movie. It was one that I'm quite sure I never heard of when it came out, if I did, I didn't really. It kind of went under the radar, I guess, and I probably found it probably in the wake of. I probably came to it as well in the wake of, in my case, Bowling for Columbine, because that would have been my introduction to more. And I'm surprised by this because I grew up, as I've said before, I was a huge John Candy fan when I was younger, and I never did get around to seeing the movie that killed him, Wagons East, but I always kind of associated Cool Runnings with like his Last Hurrah, which is not fully accurate, but that was just like a year or two before that, I guess. So that was always kind of where I was with that. But it is kind of weird because I like Candy. I grew up on Cheers, so like I've always known Rhea Perlman. I've always liked Alan Alda. I saw some MASH growing up, and I see him in a lot of stuff. And generally, you got Rip Torn, Kevin Pollak. You've got a solid
Bill
cast
Nunn.
here. Was that?
I said Bill Nunn.
Well, yeah, Bill Nunn as well. And then, of course, all the cameos that you got, like Dan Aykroyd and whatever. You got a lot of good cameos mixed into there. I think when I first saw it, I was intrigued by the curiosity of it because, again, one knows more primarily as a documentary filmmaker. I will be the first to admit, as much as I tend to skew more in that direction in some ways, I'll be the first to admit Michael Moore has the subtlety of a sledgehammer. And that's true in most of his films. And and this is true of this one too. It's not the most subtle film I've ever seen, although some of the humor is. It is uneven. He clearly is not as competent or confident or both in leading a large cast. There's complicated set pieces involved. There's a lot involved here. And the film could have been a lot better from a filmmaking standpoint. But some of the jokes are freaking hilarious. Some of the points he makes are great. There's some great one-liners. Candy's underused, I think, and it's sad that he didn't do more with the role. But, overall, though, I liked the film the first time I saw it. I was underwhelmed, but I liked it. I think I've seen it one time since then. I've been waiting for a chance to see it again. So when I saw it this time, I'm still a little underwhelmed, but I like it.
Okay, Dave, this is your first time watching Canadian Bacon.
Yes, it is my first time watching Canadian Bacon. And what the hell kind of movie did I just watch? I mean, this movie was so staccato and so like rough around the edges. It was hard to figure out what was up and what was down.
Rough around the edges. That's a good way to put it.
I mean, I guess I enjoyed that John Candy had a Kathy Bates tackle moment. Like from Waterboy. Before Waterboy even existed, Michael Moore did that with John Candy. That was right. That was fun. But there were definitely a lot of one-liners, definitely a lot of political humor that I probably would not have understood growing up. Now, as an adult, I do understand some of the political humor, and I love the fact that Rip Torn was talking about creating an alien invasion.
Yes,
that was a precursor to Men in Black, man. I mean,
actually, didn't they come out the same year?
No, Men in Black came out 2 years later.
Yep.
Oh, right. So yeah, this was ahead of several films. The fake war predated Wag the Dog by 2 years. Going to War with Canada is 4 years before South Park did it.
Yep. Wag the Dog was a way better film in every aspect.
Yeah.
True. But in any case, I mean, to me, this ragtag group of Canadians just seemed like if you put like the A-Team and like mix and had them have a love child with the Suicide Squad.
Actually, the ragtag team of Americans played by Canadians.
And then so the A-Team, and then those love children raised by the Three Stooges.
There we go. But it was entertaining. I mean, it was hard to follow for me, and I'd love to watch it another time and actually get a physical copy down the road. Unfortunately, it's like out of print as fuck. So
really, wow.
You can get it on a John Candy triple feature pretty easily. Or at least that's how I got it.
I know, but I have most of John Candy, so I don't want to like get doubles of anything that I already have. So I'd rather find it single-handedly. But on a John Candy movie, I can see his antics were there, but and I could see his humor being played a little bit, and it was okay. I mean, it wasn't the greatest of films. It definitely had its political humor, and I guess it's a time capsule of its time.
It is indeed.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Roger, is this your first time watching Canadian Bacon?
Well, this is definitely my first time watching Canadian Bacon. I was mildly surprised. I thought this would be about eating food, Canadian bacon, eating food, whatever it is. I was surprised, but I was, of course, before I started watching it, I said, "Oh, Michael Moore. Oh no, what's going to be about?" So, I have to admit, I went into it with an open mind, and I thought, well, this might be something different, but my impression of it that is a deeply politically actuated type movie. Sure, there's a lot of humor, attempted humor, but definitely with what I know and what I've seen, and of course I don't want to talk about politics, but this is a political film to me. It simply points out certain aspects of what he perceives as American culture, infringing upon another culture, about capitalism, about the military. I don't want the film to be offensive. I just find that this is simply like a petri dish. To me, it's a petri dish of what Michael Moore thinks of America. We are a capitalist, imperialist power, and we want to bully other nations. I've been reading too much into it. 'Cause I was looking into this, like, hey, this kid is going like looking to this and then looking to that, and kind of like pulling annals to it. But if I push that aside, do I really enjoy the film? Of course, I found out that this was Candy's either last film or next to the last film. I kind of thought this was kind of underutilizing Candy's presence.
Mhm.
Alan Alda, I've only known him as playing as somebody in MASH from a long time ago. I think that the characters were fine. In all honesty, I think the characters are fine. I think they were simply jammed in small pieces, and they had to act out the rules in small pieces, and was kind of jammed together like an accordion, and then shot out. So it's kind of like watching Saturday Night Live. You know how Saturday Night Live is broken up to pieces. It's kind of like jammed at you. This is my overall impression of the film. I did went ahead and looked at other reviews, just to be fair about it, and I kind of found out to my delight that everybody hates it too. So yeah. But,
this is definitely a divisive movie. I looked at some reviews too, and I actually read a review from, I think it was the New York Times, that was straight up scathing, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Oh yeah, this was not a very well liked film by many people.
I really think this is a deeply flawed film that cannot, it's a quagmire and stupidity and stuff. Not really. I don't think it's, remember, I don't like Michael Moore. I tell you guys right off the bat, I'm more right than I am for sure on the right, but I don't like Michael Moore. But the movie does have a certain amount of charm to it. If you watch it, and this is kind of like watching a movie. You got to detach the brain, got to detach it, and just watch it. I think it's an entertaining film. So I don't think it's a worthless film. I just don't think it's a good film. And that's how I think about it.
Right.
My impressions.
All right.
Okay, thank you for that. And for me, okay, so this is not my first time watching it. I first became aware of this movie probably just shortly after it came out, because it was, I remember reading like a little blurb about it in the TV Guide, but I didn't see it until after Bowling for Columbine came out. Like I had seen Bowling for Columbine, and then I saw this, and then I actually caught this on TV on. It used to come on Showtime or HBO all the time when I was in high school. And I kind of came in. Well, Michael. Okay, so Michael Moore, I pretty much agree. I definitely largely agree with him politically, but I have to agree with Jake that he is as subtle as a sledgehammer. And he definitely will. I guess the word is I don't want to say distort, but like play around with fat. He'll take liberties with play around with fat.
Yeah.
There's
a fine line between documentary and polemic, and he dances that line with each movie. Sometimes he jumps right over into polemic. Sometimes he pulls it back a little.
Yeah, and it's like, and after a while, his kind of like whole, like he does his whole like when he goes to question certain people like Dick, when he goes to like interview people like Dick Clark, it's kind of like or Bob Eubanks, it's kind of like that whole gotcha moment. It kind of I feel like he's got his documentaries have a lot of that, but yeah, I kind of but Bowling for Columbine at the time, I was a fan of that. And John Candy, of course, from everything he did up to his almost, or just about everything he did up to his death, I was a fan of, except Wagon Tees. But I thought it was a nice little not a great movie, but a pretty fun political satire. I do think, though, that I agree. It's kind of a bit of a tonally uneven movie. But I do think that at the time, though, looking back, Michael Moore at least had some potential. Like he could have, I think he could have done, like if this movie had done, if he had kept at it, he probably could have done more. I could have seen him doing like more narrative features,
right?
Or like mix it up between narrative features and documentaries. but yeah, I think the cast is. But I still think the cast is great. There's still a lot of moments that make me laugh. That like I was like when I was watching it. I watched it twice over the last week, and there's a lot of moments that still make me laugh out loud. But and it really is ahead of its time as far as in terms of South Park, Bigger, Longer, Than Uncut, Wag the Dog.
Blame Canada, blame Canada.
And as someone who grew up in upstate New York, and also as someone who grew up in upstate New York, there's also some things. There were also moments in there that really had me on the floor, like when they get to Toronto, and oh god, what was his name? The laid off factory worker. I think it was
the one that was trying to kill himself at the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roy Boy.
Roy Boy. When he sees the Toronto skyline, he's like, "It's like Albany, only cleaner."
Yeah.
Which
there's like that one line where Rhea Perlman says something like, "You smell anything?" And he's like, "No." Exactly. In Canada.
Yeah, that's like having grown up in upstate New York. Those moments that really got me rolling on the floor.
Right.
Okay, so we're okay. But yeah, I think it was a good. It's kind of. It could have been. Not the best work for Candy or Moore, but I think it definitely showed potential. I think for Moore, it showed potential. What could have been. And for Candy, it's not his best work. It's not maybe not the best way to go out, but still he still gave a very lovable, a very solid performance, lovable performance.
Right, and he does still get one of the best moments in the film, where he's like, "All I said was Canadian beer sucks." It's good times.
All right, so should we start with? I guess we should start with the beginning of the movie. We've got. Okay. It starts off in Buffalo. It starts off in Niagara Falls, New York, which is a town city along the Canadian border, along Ontario, where its employees are protesting are outraged that their employer Hacker Dynamics is leaving the area. They're closing down shop and leaving the area, and the CEO blames the president, who's there to address the crowd.
But before that, don't we get like a moment where this guy ends up going to try to kill himself?
Yes.
Why not? Were we introduced to? Well, I think before we were introduced to them, we were introduced to the president, right? And got the basic geopolitical thing of the Soviet Union's collapsed, and the U.S. needs someone, huh?
Yeah, I think that happened after the factory. Scene.
Okay, but yeah, we did have that scene with the guy that very ineptly tries
to commit suicide by jumping
like we call some old Russian Cold War person with a big eyebrows talking almost Russian, telling them, "Hey, we don't want to be your enemies anymore. You guys are cool. We just want to ship food to you guys. We're cool."
And he says this to the president while he's eating a bucket of fried chicken.
Right.
Yeah.
I talk about like not MTV, but that other one, the VH one. But no, the scene with that dude trying to kill himself, that was actually, I think, one of the moments early on that I really enjoyed, because they were talking about how Well, there's a lot of newscast going on, like setting a lot of the tone. And the newscaster says something about how the rate of suicide has gone up. And so the local police has their hands full, like trying to prevent them or whatever. And it's like they will give you $25 if you talk someone down, but they'll give you $50 for bringing the body. And so then you cut to Candy and Perlman sitting there with that jump. And she says, "What? It was the 9th one that week, I think."
Rhea Perlman was perfect for the role that they put her in, and that's where you get the setting that this was one of those, and you can tell that he was fresh off of his work with Roger and Me and the Big One, because those were labor-based ones. Matter of fact, I would say that those are two documentaries that could hold up actually with many modern conservatives of this day, because it's not about socialism; it's about keeping jobs in America with factories, which I think both parties could agree with. Back then, there was a more of an urge to, well, let's outsource jobs to Mexico because that will make us more money and that will be reinvested. But that's kind of changed over the years, I think, feeling for everybody. So at that, because then the Cold War ends, of course, all these factories go down, and in these towns, everybody was employed by the factories, everybody, and that's why they were like, "Man, if we keep this up, we'll be able to make as much as we did working at the factory."
Yeah,
right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I grew up.
And then they realize that it's their friend Roy Boy, and then suddenly they're like, "No, we need to save him."
She's like, "Jump!" No.
But yeah, and then you had, the two of them sitting in that boat, Candy in the parka. He looked like the Gorton's fisherman almost, but without the not as yellow. But yeah, and then you have that great factory scene where you have all the unemployed factory workers standing around at an auction where they're trying to sell off these munitions at rock bottom prices. and then Roy Boy shows up and ends up buying a little hand cannon.
Bazooka there.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah, at the time, it was like everybody who could carry arms wanted arms.
Oh, you think about it, you got military spec equipment being sold at rock bottom prices.
Right.
I mean, that would
the missile launchers and everything.
Yeah. It's like going to a gun show, but you can buy ICBMs,
Definitely a whole big crowd buying all kinds of cool stuff. Hey, let's buy all this stuff.
Right.
I mean, in truth, if I had a chance to, at rock bottom prices, get me a bazooka legally, I might take advantage of that myself.
Go on weekends and blow shit up.
Exactly.
We're not talking about the bubble gum, are we? No, just kidding.
Well, actually, as poor as some of those people were, I'll bet you someone probably did whip out a pack of bazooka and be like, "What can I get for this?"
Actually, though, the saying, chewing gum, kicking ass, and chewing bubble gum, and
there you go. And we're all out of bubble gum, right?
Exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised if Fargo got a little bit of their humor from this film.
It's possible.
I mean that whole Upper Midwest, that whole.
Could be that that Moore was trying to emulate the Coens because they.
Well, and actually, one film that the Coens have referenced multiple times that you definitely hear echoes of in this one is Dr. Strangelove, And there's definitely a feel, I think, that more probably was heavily influenced by that one, I would think. And I thought of something. I
Yes,
don't know.
very much.
I don't know if this is a accident or if it was a brilliant bit of casting. But of course, in Doctor Strangelove, the hawkish general who does ultimately create Doomsday is General Jack D. Ripper. And in this one, the hawkish general who's trying to start a war is played by Rip Torn. And I'm wondering if that was one of the greatest accidents in casting, or if they did that on purpose. But I don't know.
Definitely got the Men in Black in there.
Right. Indeed, yes. It was interesting that they thought the American public would buy a war with aliens. They probably would at this point, but you know.
I have to say though, the Doctor Strangelove influence, you can't deny that one. That's
No, definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'll admit, I actually saw this movie before I saw Doctor Strangelove, and I didn't.
Ah.
And, so I'll admit, when I first saw this movie, I thought it was like the greatest thing, one of the greatest artists, one of the most brilliant things ever. And then I saw Doctor Strangelove afterward, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, so it's got, it's. It's. I mean, it's. I don't know. It's. I mean, I guess it kind of. It's kind of like a less. Like a less.
Anderson film? Like a Wes Anderson film?
Maybe like a less brilliant Doctor Strangelove.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see much Wes Anderson here, but
definitely not much Wes Anderson for me.
actually, this predates Wes Anderson by a year. I think Bottle Rocket was 96.
I was going to say 3 years before Rushmore.
Yeah, but anyway. Oh man, that's a missed opportunity. John Candy in a Wes Anderson film. Wouldn't that have been something?
I feel like if he were alive today, he would have done at least one Anderson.
Probably. Anyway, yeah. So you got this president show up to talk to these people, and well, that goes over well, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of a weird kind of scene where the president has been told that your ratings is sucking. What are we going to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what he calls on Russia to restart the Cold War.
Right.
To no avail.
The problem with being a peacetime president is you actually have to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
They
true.
actually look at the state of the country at that point.
That's why it's funny
I would say,
that
like,
they
for instance, at the time, it's the economy stupid.
What's up?
That's
I said,
why
I think in '95 we had Clinton during that time, so we had some things going on, but we didn't really have the Cold War had ended.
Right.
We weren't everybody wasn't like pointing missiles and letting you know that we are pointing missiles at you constantly. We weren't doing those nuclear drills anymore. Building basements, stuff like that.
And the Middle East wasn't really on our radar. I mean, apart from the Gulf War, the Middle East.
We had
wasn't really
Desert Shield, but that was about it, I think.
We were already started into that, so people got used to the Desert War. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely and that's one thing that seems to be a common thread in a lot of these is just the idea, which is very true. This is unfortunate, but true, that the way to win support for a lot of people has been to find a enemy and point the finger, and then once you have that enemy in your sights, even if it's Canada,
Yeah.
it'll do something, you know. That's like one of my favorite lines in this one was like the media jumps on the bandwagon and there's like the maple syrup, their evil oozes all
I love that they got the dripping down the side.
Now, this spot that Kotobukijake is talking about is the first thing my cynical self was looking at. I'm convinced, I know, even to this moment, I'm convinced that Michael Moore is telling us that we should not be fighting Cuba. Because Cuba is is the helpless person, helpless country that's not doing anything wrong. They have excellent health care, and now we're picking up a war with them.
He has praised their health care.
He has praised their health.
He has done that.
You're picking on an innocent country. This is kind of like my thought about, as I was watching this. He's talking about Canada. No, he's not really talking about Canada. He's talking about Cuba.
It could be
It's
a little
possible. It's possible, though. I of course, then again, I don't come from that perspective, so I could see it just as easily being Canada.
bit.
Because again,
I think it's more again the idea of the other. The general idea that as long as we have an other to fight, then any president could stay in power, even one as weak and ineffectual as this one. And I have to say, Alan Alda plays probably the weakest, most ineffectual, namby-pamby president I think I've seen in a long time.
Well, you put it that way, he's kind of a very believable. He's actually a very believable president.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah,
he seems like a regular guy. Like that whole thing at the end where he now hosts Wake Up Cleveland.
I didn't even see how he got to be president in that one. He doesn't even seem like he would be that charismatic when he's going up. Makes you wonder about his opponent.
I was going to say maybe he was a vice president and he took over. I don't know if they really said specifically.
Sometimes both candidates are crap, and then you're just
exactly.
Which one is slightly better?
Sometimes,
than the other one? So,
sometimes it's a matter of picking out the devil that's lesser than the other one.
Yeah.
But I know those cleanliness cracks and stuff. That is definitely all Canada because Cuba is not like that. But because and that's something that's always. And I've been to Canada a couple of times, and Jake's been to Canada. At least when I went, I'll admit the difference in cleanliness between our cities and their cities is.
Toronto was nice. Toronto is a nice city.
Montreal was beautiful as well. I was surprised as far as the cleanliness is concerned.
I've been to Toronto and Montreal, and coming from the other side of coming right up from New York.
Yeah.
I was always amazed at for example, Montreal. I was in the subway. And I was like, wow, there's the subway's clean. There's no rats scurrying around.
Yeah, I did my one time. I've been to Canada once and I've been to Manhattan once. And while I was in Manhattan and while I was in Toronto, I did use the subway in both places. And I would say Toronto definitely had the cleaner subway system from what I saw.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say the dirty, Toronto. Yeah, I haven't ridden in Toronto's subway system, but I've used Montreal's, and I was absolutely floored at how clean it was. Whereas here in New York, and then also Boston and Philadelphia, just disgusting.
Now, I will admit, I didn't go up to any Canadians and insult their beer, so I don't know how accurate that part was.
Well, I'll tell you now. I went up to Montreal wearing a New York Rangers hat, like 2 months after the Rangers beat the Canadiens in the Eastern Conference titles, and I got so many I was getting dirty looks. I walked into a deli to get a sandwich and was greeted with booze from everybody.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Oh,
I guess it's all a matters where people put their money when it comes to government, as far as clean. What do they call
mm,
it? The stuff the stuff that keeps them clean. Because
Sanitation.
when I was in Europe, the sanitation levels varied. Like Czech Republic was dirty as heck. Italy was one of the filthiest countries I have ever been to. Yet
Yeah,
mm.
my
Austria and Germany, I had looked at the subway. I was like, "Oh my god, you could eat off of this darn thing."
I mean, my mom, because my parents have been to Paris, and they said that the streets there were like really, really dirty. Like their shoes
Oh yeah,
were
Paris
covered.
is supposed to be filthy.
Huh. Wasn't that lovely? Well, I did feel like I was only in Canada for 2 days, and I went to Toronto, passed through Niagara Falls. So I actually did go through where this takes place. And the Canadian side, Niagara Falls, is a lovely, quaint little village. I was like, this is a nice place. And the experience I had generally was that everyone I talked to was very pleasant, very nice, very, very nice, until I mentioned I was there for a job interview,
Oh yeah,
and it got cold fast. It
yeah.
got cold fast.
My dad
Because they
just
don't.
because
Yeah.
my dad has traveled to Canada for business, and
Mhm.
when he's told the customs agents
Yeah.
that he's there for business,
Mhm.
they get the customs agents get really nasty with him
Mhm.
because they think he's trying to take their jobs.
Yep,
Mhm.
they get very protective of
Well,
their.
they also just don't want Americans moving there. Was the impression I got, which
Yeah.
can't say I blame
That's
them.
part of it too.
But yeah, I had a long talk in a hostel with a guy from Australia, and he told me straight up. He's like, "Yeah, he's like, yeah, they're fine with just about everyone, but if you're American, don't tell them you're looking for work." It's like- but anyway, otherwise, it was a fun trip. I want to go back. I really do.
Yeah, actually earlier today I was looking because they're reopening the border on in a couple of weeks from now. I was looking to go see the Yankees play the Blue Jays at the end of the season in Toronto. But I was looking at the ticket prices, and I was like, oh, my head nearly hit the ceiling when I saw what the ticket prices were.
Too high or
Imagine
too
they're, like,
low?
super high.
Too hot, super high.
Oh,
Because
okay.
because just what they've been doing to try and open up. They've had a really poor vaccine rollout up there. So they kind of screwed that up. But it's
Lovely.
been we've had our fun with Canadians, but but they're on the border of Niagara, which is why Niagara is the center of our story.
It is, yes, indeed. And but we also are introduced. We haven't really mentioned Kevin Pollak's character yet, have we? He's
No, we haven't.
he is the president's security advisor, and he just oozes trustworthiness, doesn't he?
I remember seeing him in Stigmata.
Yeah. I don't know. I mostly remember him from The Usual Suspects, and it's like he was everywhere for about 4 or 5 years in the mid '90s, and now he's kind of disappeared.
He was still around, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
I definitely remember him like having bigger roles back then. Yeah, bigger roles back then, like
Right.
Grumpy Old Ben, House.
Right. Well, he's doing live TV now, I guess.
Yeah.
And
He does podcast.
But-
He does podcasting these days.
Hmm.
I'm just looking at his media page. But yeah, he's still acting. He still gets he's still got a lot of roles, but
Right.
he also does podcasting these days too.
Good times.
But anyway, he revealed he so his Pollock's character has ties with hacker dynamics,
Indeed.
and they're discontent about not having a new enemy, a new enemy.
And look at
I
it.
love how they bring in the Russian president.
Mm-hmm.
They're like
And
trying to
he's
convince him to reignite the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't go over well. So, but we go over to Bud Boomer and his buddies who were attending a hockey game in Canada, where Bud causes a
ruckus.
by criticizing Canadian beer.
Yeah.
I need to.
Which,
like,
in
try that
in fairness, Molson is not terrible. Labatt's is not terrible.
I prefer Labatt Blue myself.
It's not bad at all. It's just not extraordinary, but I found that amusing. Their whiskey's pretty awesome.
Yeah, they got good whiskey over there.
But
I don't know.
Yeah.
When I think of Canadian whiskey, I think of Leprechaun 2, when Leprechaun takes it and spits it out.
So now I
Yeah.
gotta watch Leprechaun. And I gotta watch Doctor Strangelove.
well, yeah, you
Dr.
gotta watch
Strange-
Doctor Strange. Yeah.
Actually, if you watch Doctor Strangelove, you will see a lot of similarities to this, but not with the rough around the edges. Stanley Kubrick
Well,
is very refined in how
the
he
thing-
does it.
Interestingly enough, though, I think as Kubrick's films go, Doctor Strangelove is close to rough around the edges as he gets. Like he does do a lot of improvisation, or did do a lot of improvisation. Strangelove, he kept more of that in the final product, I think, than he did his later ones.
Wasn't that his only comedy though?
It's the only out and out comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, some people would call Lolita a comedy. Some people would call Clockwork Orange. Some people call Clockwork Orange a comedy. It is dark, but
It's dark, dude. It's really dark.
I do think I personally, you can take this for what you will. I do think Doctor Strangelove is one of the 10 funniest films ever made. It's pretty funny, but like I said, take that for what you will.
And I think a lot of that whole, and again, a lot of this, unfortunately, it's a little bit harder to understand some of the way that they do it, especially if you hadn't grown up with the Cold War aesthetic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing, at least, Roger, I know you were actually older. You're older than us, not that much older, but you were actually an adult in the early '90s when this was made, if I recall
And in
correctly.
the military too.
Yeah, so but you had a good idea, so with the whole ramping down of the Cold War.
Oh, yeah.
And then the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up, I mean, I still got a lot of that propaganda, the Cold War stuff. You got to be prepared because you never know when they're going to invade, stuff like that. But
Okay, so as someone who was born in the late '80s, all I know about the Cold War, I learned from watching Rambo on cable.
So you
That's
learn the
good.
important stuff, right?
Actually,
The guy that played Roy Boy played Colonel Corn in the recent TV Catch-22. And his most recent credit is a movie called Wish Upon a Unicorn. So, everyone it said at the end, whereabouts unknown. That's probably why, because he was in a movie called Wish Upon a Unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, you can see though that Cold War aesthetic in both films.
Yeah.
But the other one is just basically a lot of people who are out of work. And yeah, when you've been doing manufacturing for the Cold War for ages, and then you
Yeah.
suddenly stop. That puts a lot of people out of work. So that makes a lot of people desperate.
Yeah. It's like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop,
Mhm.
or big military contractors. So they depend upon, really, they do depend upon war. Without war, they won't exist.
War is
I'm
big
sure-
business.
I'm sure they could be sitting there talking to him about like, hey, why don't we just keep this going? We don't have to do anything. Just
Let's
pretend.
start the Cold War again. Let's just do something and make something happen. Yeah, just make something. Like I said,
Mhm.
the humorous part when Alden says, no, we don't want to do this. Do we really want to do this? So it was all right. But yeah, during that time we were always talked about, kill the commies, get rid of the commies. So it was a pretty, even after the Cold War kind of like ended with Gorbachev with the Glasnost, it was still a lot of feelings between us and them. You'll see that in other movies. That's us and them. Us and the Ruskies to do this, like Firefox or Hunt for October. It's always us and them, us and them. So this is kind of like another way of showing that we have an adversarial contract to make something happen with our military.
And even after we gave the Russian president Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he was enjoying that.
Yeah.
So the president and his cabinet get wind of this hockey riot, and that's when they decide to use that Canada will be the new enemy. They decide that Canada will be the new enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they sure make it happen. All this propaganda all these commercials, talk shows, all the spectrum. Whatever you talked about, how evil Canadians are.
Yeah. And how they live among us.
Yes, how they've already infiltrated us.
Snatchers.
Yeah. What was it? The Canadians. They walk among us. William Shatner, Michael J. Fox, Monty
Alex
Hall,
Trebek.
Mike Myers, all of them Canadians. All of them here. Think of your children pledging allegiance to the maple leaf. Mayonnaise on everything. Winter 11 months of the year. Anne Murray all day, every day.
I was kind of halfway surprised if that Moore didn't put in the upside down Canadian flag just to create some more humor.
Although I just noticed though, between this movie and South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut, there's a lot of shots at Anne Murray.
There are.
Yes, there are.
And that bitch Anne Murray.
I get ragging on Bryan Adams, but I get ragging on Bryan Adams or Nickelback, but Nickelback was around back then. But Anne Murray, I'm not sure exactly what Moore and Trey Parker and Matt Stone have against her. I don't even listen to Anne Murray, so I can't. So I'm out of the loop on that.
I've heard some. I mean, it's all right for what it is. There's that part where Honey gets that card. Best wishes, Gordon Lightfoot. Ew.
I love that entire part where she wakes up with those candy stripe nurses.
Right.
Now they do in those commercials show. Of course, you see the paranoia amping up because they're talking about Canadian troops massing on the border, and so you see the paranoia amping up between all the people, all of our crew there, and John Candy and them. They're getting there armed and they're patrolling, and Rhea Perlman's character's getting more and more paranoid and obsessed with that tower, doing the mashed potato thing as we've seen before. Also parodied in UHF as well. It was, and that tower actually is a plot point because it does come in later. But as does her paranoia and obsession with it.
I had all kinds of weird thoughts about that tower. They're trying to make it into a missile. They're making it into a big phallus, make a big old phallus thing. Just blame it on.
Yeah. There is a little bit of that, yeah. Yeah.
As we saw with Jeff Bezos' spaceship today.
Oh, jeez.
Bezos and what's his name? Brosnan from Virgin? Branson. Yeah, he's also squawking about being an astronaut. He's like, yeah, look at me, we're an astronaut now. I did it.
But does he have but does Branson have a phallic spaceship?
It will be a very interesting thing to look. I would like to see this thing.
We are going to
I
penetrate
get
space.
mine up all the way to space.
Oh, what? Hey.
Oh, like those two billionaires that just recently had their space mission?
It has a whole new meaning to penetrating the atmosphere.
Brandon, I can't believe you said that.
You can't do that on television, but you certainly can here.
I would say you can't do that on television. A Canadian program.
Yes, good one too.
Introduced Green Slime to Nickelodeon.
Right.
And we can blame Canada. So we can blame Canada for that.
And most of the actors in this film.
Indeed. Actually, there is kind of I don't know, it's kind of a bittersweet irony that John Candy's final film role is him playing an American who's kind of rabidly anti-Canadian. It's kind of
it does.
It's kind of strange.
Because their plot was, okay, we're going to do this we're going to do this little bombing of an energy station here in order to, sow some of that. John Candy actually fools them, becoming a little bit more competent and catching the Americans who are posing as Canadians.
Or as Canucks.
That was actually great. They caught him, and then they decided to do a counterattack by shutting off the power over in Canada. They find the power stations.
Oh my God, man! Get an old nuclear power station. Excuse us, you want to turn off the power? Are you the only one here? Yes, young man, we're the only ones here. Okay, let's turn off. Oh my God!
They're just sitting there knitting, doing their little.
Actually, Moore poked a lot of fun at Canada as well. In many ways,
I believe this was after their initial strike where they left Honey behind, I believe, and then she was taken captives, quote unquote, like a hostage.
And they went there. They take the trash and just take it and spread it on the shore.
Right.
There is a piece of information about how America, if they were going to invade a country like what happened back with Desert Storm, Desert Shield, the first thing they do is turn off all the power.
Right.
Well,
and then they soften them up with troops, and then they start. Then they do it with aircraft bombings and all this other stuff. I said,
and then they go litter in the streets.
I love how she said, "Hey, honey, I could get used to this."
I like the when they learned that she's been captured. I believe they were sitting at their favorite bar, and it's something like, "We got to go get her after this round," or whatever it is. And
it was another round.
It might have been at that moment. It might have been later. I can't remember. But Boomer did have one good line that amused me and reminded me a little bit of Monty Python and The Life of Brian, where he's like, "There's a time to think and a time to act, and this, gentleman, is no time to think."
Yes, that's a movie number 3 I need to watch, huh?
That was a good one. Yeah, well, that one had the whole thing with the what was it?
The People's Month.
What was it? The People Liberation Front or whatever it was, where they had the constant debates and discussions, and this calls for immediate debate.
Rock throwing.
Yeah, but let's see here. So we've hit most of the characters, right? Did we talk about Cabral?
Cabral. Oh no, we haven't talked about Cabral.
The fourth musketeer.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And the only black man in the group.
Right.
Oh
You
yeah,
make sure you know it.
He makes sure you know it. Yes. Yeah.
and the guy with the bad teeth.
Yeah. And you had the so you got those guys, just their real brain trust there. And incidentally,
He reminded me of like the guy in Forrest Gump who was like bubblegum shrimp, potato.
oh yeah. Actually, they I read that the line where he's talking about how the black guy dies in every movie, and they mentioned Forrest Gump, and that apparently was looped in post because this it was actually came out that was being made before Forrest Gump even came out. But then they were like, I guess they were like, well, we got to include that. So, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun times. Him and Roy Boy were kind of more along for the ride than anything, but they
I think it was more.
They had their moments.
I think it was more. Yeah, it was definitely more Bud and Honey who were
right.
Who were more bent on prevail on going to war
Mm-hmm.
and stopping the Maple Menace.
Yeah, particularly Honey. She clearly had taken that message to heart. Yeah. But they did they ever say why she was in jail?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was because I think it was because she had crossed the border without proper identification.
Was that it? Okay.
It might have been it, or that I'm trying to remember.
I remember they said that she had been paroled, like at some point when they were talking about her as part of the police force. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I like how they go through the different people, like with why they were locked up.
Yes, and with Stephen Wright as the Mountie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When he was giving them their little tour of the jail, and he came to that guy that he was like this real mellow dude, but when he got to the guy who did the corporate crimes, he was very mean to him. Yeah, I thought that was quite amusing. But and Stephen Wright was kind of fun overall. He kind of just played this really kind of mellow, laconic, kind of really laid back guy.
In many ways, he was just being Stephen Wright.
Yeah, pretty much. But they shake down Wright for Honey's whereabouts. He tells them that she's in the capital in Ottawa.
But they're not very bright with geography. But Bud and friends aren't very geographically savvy. So they decide to go to Toronto.
Because he's obviously lying. Because obviously Toronto is the capital.
Yes, indeed.
Yep. And somewhere along the line, they also encounter a highway patrol officer who's played by Dan Aykroyd, and that was kind of an amusing little moment, which again I think directly referenced Life of Brian, the part where Brian was trying to write Romans Go Home and the Centurion makes him do it 100 times, and Dan Aykroyd is correcting Boomer's French grammar. No. He said he had to do in French because everything was French and English. That's what it was. Yes. Yeah. So all the graffiti he had to rewrite in French.
Actually, although here's one part that to me dates the movie is when he tells Candy that he has to pay a fine, and he says that'll be $1,000 Canadian or 10 American if you prefer. And
Yes.
here's the $10 bill. I'm like, oh wow, this is definitely this is how you know. This is like how you know this movie was made in the '90s. It's like you could get this fine that's like we're like this like just how much the exchange rate was in our favor back then.
Yeah. Well, I still remember. I mean, I remember as a kid of the '90s, like you'd buy comics and they'd have the Canadian price printed on there, and it was like double the American price, or something like that.
I as a comic book collector, I always noticed that. Like when I would notice that like, they have the U.S. price and then the Canadian price, and I'm like, wow, why? It's like I was like wondering why are Canadian comics so expensive?
Yeah.
Yeah, the subtle jabs that he had a couple of subtle jabs at Canada as well, but again, I think it was he was just basically making fun of most everybody in a lot of ways.
Right.
He's not. Or so Canada's over politeness.
And
he's definitely not as equal opportunity in his jabs as Messrs. Park and Stone, but
well, you see, he's again. A lot of people confuse this Michael Moore for the same Michael Moore of today. They're very different people, because the Michael Moore of the early '90s was very different in how he presented. Because again, he was blue collar. He was a blue collar guy who ended up being PO'd because his town was basically screwed over. So he made a documentary about it. And as he became more successful, that's when he became much more, more left. So you can see kind of that coloration between that blue collar background with a little bit of what he was evolving into. Very different films from his early films to his more recent ones, which I'm not sure I cared much for. Capitalism, a Love Story, actually. That was way too out there, but
I kind of lost interest. I kind of lost interest after Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yeah.
All right. So, what else we trying to hit plot wise?
Let's see.
Oh well, honey, we have. We haven't really talked much about about what over in Washington with the missile silos.
Yeah.
What do they call it? The something Hellstorm.
Hacker Hellstorm. Yeah.
Hacker Hellstorm. Yeah. Which is funny to see that they sold a device to Canada that controlled all of our nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Full-on treasonous act right there.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And then, of course, when a hacker falls over a railing and they blame it on Smiley, and he's trying to say, he's like, I got the code, but he doesn't get to say it because they shove them in his mouth and tie him to a chair. It's like, yes, that's good. That's good thinking there. But, because Smiley gets a little bit of a conscience. He's been in bed with Hacker all this time, but when he realizes, oh, wait a minute, Hacker really screwed us over. And then he's like, oh, okay. But and meanwhile, you have our intrepid American squad who, what again? I don't know if we mentioned that Honey, after being she ends up in a mental institution, if I remember correctly, or something approaching that.
Yeah.
But I like their explanation of something like the candy stripers come in to tell her something to the effect of, what was it? Like, you're cleared to be examined in, what was it, like 6 weeks or something?
2006.
2006, right, yeah. and then meantime, we'll go ahead and do, what was it, a kidney transplant that
Yeah, it's a kidney transplant. Like, oh wait, that's not right.
Well, that's not right. I kind of wonder why the kidneys. You see, that could be seen as a jab at Canada. I can't really imagine. That most people would want their candy stripers to be carrying around those kind of personal files. But that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I love that. 2006.
You're at graduate high school.
Right.
All right.
And she escapes, of course, and goes on a bit of a rampage.
Yeah, rampage.
Oh, and meanwhile, the other guys are being. We got to mention that Rip Torn has unleashed. What is it? The Omega Squad or whatever it is.
The Omega Squad.
The Omega Squad. Yes.
An actual military squad.
Yes. Yes. Even though apparently there's like some convention against them being used for Caucasians, but they were going to make an exception. I'm like,
Well, that joke kind of hits home present.
Yes.
Probably a racial thing.
Yeah, just a bit. Actually, that sounds almost more like a Spike Lee joke, to be honest. But but yeah. It was interesting. It was interesting. The part I found interesting was a Boomer was able to make it to the top of that tower, but the squad was falling out along the way.
Right?
Yeah. They weren't in good enough shape to scale that tower. I'm like, okay.
Well,
that's kind of sad.
That's the thing is it's interesting to see that as incompetent as they make them look on the surface, they're actually fairly competent for the most part. I mean, they stop. Right. That's the other thing that you can see as a subtle jab, is saying basically that all these trained people are no match for the actual regular citizens who have been ready and armed for this whole thing.
I have no idea why, but when John Candy went to that tower, I kept thinking of Jeff Foxworthy's redneck joke, saying, "If you've ever been to the top of a tower to defend your sister's honor, you might be."
If you've ever climbed a water tower to defend your sister's honor, I think I know which one you're talking about. Slightly different meaning there, but yeah, I can see. But actually, you could see these people if Perlman had not gone medieval on the circuitry with her machine gun. I could have almost seen, especially the other two, Roy Boy and Cabral. I could have seen them hauling a few buckets of paint up to the top of there and making maybe writing Canadian beer sucks. I could see them writing that on the tower. That would have been that would have started an international incident.
Yeah, right there. I mean, they don't like it when you screw with their beer.
Oh, jeez. I guess
who doesn't drink beer that much myself, so I can't really say.
Well, Dave, you're a resident of Milwaukee. Well, I'll bet an international incident would happen if a bunch of Canadians did that in Milwaukee.
Right.
Well, we Wisconsins, since we're our northern Wisconsiners are a bit more like Canadians.
Right.
Well,
you see my point.
Even my parts of my family, I could swear they're partially Canadian.
Well, you see my point, though. If a bunch of foreigners came to Milwaukee and climbed a tower and said American beer sucks,
yeah, that's like punching them in the face right there. I mean.
Well, they said Anheuser-Busch sucks. I would say, oh no, you're totally right.
Yeah, but, I'd be like, Yeah, if they attack if they attack my Hardywood though, or my Devil's Backbone or something, then those would be fighting words.
Damn it.
For me, it'd be fighting words if they attacked like Brooklyn Brewery or
Sam Adams.
I think it attacks Sam Adams for all I care.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like a more nationally known brand.
I don't hate Sam. I don't hate Sam Adams. I just like to me that's more of a jab at Boston.
Yeah.
Oh, if someone said something against Pabst beer, that would be different.
Pabst isn't bad.
Right.
As far as big beers, Pabst is actually decent.
You know, one that my dad used to be a fan of was Old Milwaukee, and I once read something that thought it was hilarious to find out that supposedly Old Milwaukee is becoming sort of like a hipster beer. That you know, it's like the cool thing to love, and it's
I mean that's what Pabst Blue Ribbon is becoming. I mean,
I think I've only seen Old Milwaukee in gas stations out west.
Exactly. That's where you find hipster stuff, right?
You drink old style, that's hipster beer, at least according to some of us here.
And then there's also this is actually more like for Maryland and DC, for like Baltimore and DC. There's Natty Bo or Natural Bohemian, which is I would say another major hipster beer.
I don't know about Natty Bo, but I went to school in a town where Natty Light was like water for people.
No, Natty Light was like below Bud Light when I was in college.
Right. It's like the restaurant I worked at. We joked that Salem would implode in on itself if we were to run out of Natty Light, sweet tea, or ranch dressing. So naturally, I created something that went on the menu. I don't think anyone ever ordered it, but it was in the system. It was called a Salem Bomb. It was a mug of draft Natty Light and a ramekin of ranch that you dropped.
I'd rather drink the warm fuzzy rice.
See, growing up, Corona Extra was like the beer to drink, and then of course,
but only with lime. Only with lime.
MG, Miller Lite, and Miller High Life became my beer of choice whenever I went out to a bar. So,
and now it
You're
has
going on to an
meaning.
interesting tangent here.
I mean,
It's
beer
their
is
fault
part of
they
Canadian
insulted the
culture,
beer.
so.
Well, because beer was mentioned, we have to mention beer.
That
true.
Because Candy's character attacked Canadian beer,
and I do have to mention that my job that I had for many years, my boss was from upstate New York, and he was a big Molson drinker, and he often would keep it in the at work in the refrigerator. And it's all right. It's all right. But I never heard of Molson until I was working there.
I could show you some of my baby pictures, and like it'll be like me and my dad
drinking Molson.
It'll be like my dad with me in one arm and a Molson in the other, and my dad with me in one hand and a Molson in the other. Those are my baby pictures.
My goodness.
Good deal.
Pose with the beer.
Right.
See, that's the scary part, is that it really wasn't you that was the picture. The picture was actually the beer. You were just a part of that picture by accident.
Well, he needed something to hold in the other arm so that, he wasn't just working out one arm and not the other, Oh, jeez. Anyway.
Yes, indeed. So,
what are maybe our favorite scenes, or?
Actually, I think we're supposed to. Actually, well, before that happens, Honey is reunited with Boomer, and they escape they escape back to New York,
Mhm.
back to the U.S. At the side, like from they go from nice clean to Toronto to dirty Niagara Falls, dirty Niagara Falls. And
Yeah, you have that lovely image where they look across the river at all the smokestacks and all that stuff, and Honey's something like it's home or whatever, and it's like,
And so after we get a montage of the characters' fates. Or ends with a montage of the characters' fates. Boomer,
which
Boomer,
I get the feeling that this was a.
Oh, go ahead, Jake. Jake,
Oh, I was going to say I get a feeling that was a direct nod to Animal House. That at least that's my guess, especially with the one character that says whereabouts unknown, which is exactly what D-Day's thing was. So
yeah, I can
it's
almost
fun,
guarantee.
but I'm pretty sure that's a nod to.
I can almost guarantee that Moore watched Animal House at one point in his life.
I would say Animal House and American Graffiti.
Could be. I don't remember the ending of American Graffiti very well. I don't remember the movie very well. I've seen it once. I need to see it again.
I mean, it has sort of ending in that they tell you what the characters' fates were.
Right.
Well, and they mentioned what was it? The Dirty Dozen during the movie? They did that during the end of that movie too. So I wonder if that wasn't a direct nod to that movie too.
It could be. And of course, that was kind of an interesting thing. Where like they're sitting around the campfire talking about the Dirty Dozen, and they're naming off all the cast except for Jim Brown, and that one guy keeps saying Jim Brown, and which is notable because if I remember correctly, I think that wasn't that Jim Brown's movie debut? I think it was.
I believe so.
And then actually a big part, incidentally, those of you who haven't seen it, we've finalized our nominee list, and One Night in Miami did get a couple of nods, but Aldous Hodge did a great job playing Jim Brown in that film, and he is playing at the point that film takes place, he's weighing whether or not to take the role. So that was kind of an interesting bit of timing for me, I think, that they were talking about Dirty Dozen. But I like that little end bit. Another part that came up in that conversation was I think doesn't Roy Boy say something about like, why are there no black people in hockey or something? And he's like, well, we can't take over all the sports at once.
And then he becomes a hockey player.
Yes. Yeah, three-time whatever it was. I don't remember. Yeah, Bud got his dream to be on Cops. Irregular, I believe they said.
Honey was named humanitarian of the year by NRA.
NRA Humanitarian of the Year. I love that.
Yeah, that was cool. That was great.
And then the president again, he lost in the biggest landslide in history, and now he hosts Wake Up Cleveland. It's like, and then the General Panzer. I don't think we ever mentioned his name, General Panzer. Took his life upon learning that Hogan's Heroes was made up.
And then Pollock's character, Smiley, he served 8 months in prison, and was pardoned by President Oliver North.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it was and I think there were maybe a couple, and then Roy Boy, whereabouts unknown. They like I said, the direct Animal House nod there. But I always like those. They're not always perfect, and sometimes they do tend to be derivative of each other once you've seen one. But sometimes you get some great jokes. Like one of my favorite jokes in all of Animal
a few of Adam
House.
Sandler's movies still do. A few of Adam Sandler's
Yeah.
ended that way.
I imagine so. Well, I know so. I'm trying to remember which ones, but but one of my favorite jokes in Animal House is where John Belushi's character Bluta Blutarsky has been harassing this one particular wasp the whole movie, and at the end he just grabs her and throws her in the car, and then you see them driving away arm in arm, Senator and Mrs. Blutarsky.
Oh my God, man! In a pirate like costume.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, actually, one moment that we one moment we forgot to mention. This one always gets me was when after they get pulled over by Dan Aykroyd and they're driving to Toronto, they start singing "Born in the USA" in Oklahoma.
Oh, and they can only remember.
They only know the choruses.
You know what? A man with two brains. You know, we know the Steve Martin's pulled over by that cop, and said, "I know I'm not drunk." And so, okay, the cop said, "Okay, let's do all this. You know, let's see if all these tests. Like they have to do this singing. There's cartwheels. The walking back and forth, all kinds of other stuff." That kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, you got a lot of cool alums there for most of the project. I mean, I was surprised at the casting that they had for this film. Especially the first time, because I didn't really like it all that much the first time. But this time, and I was like, gosh, how can a film with such a great comedy cast not be super hilarious? And I like it better now than I did, but I still have to say I feel like the cast was underutilized. That's probably
they were
right.
The problem with having the parts is not as good as the whole, or the parts are better than the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think again this was
in two separate movies.
Right. Well, again, I do think this was I think more second feature film. And it was again his first film as a narrative film, and I think honestly, Roger and Me gets a lot of credit, and it is a solid documentary.
Oh, it's an extremely
good. I think even Roger and Me is a little rough around the edges. It could have been a tighter film. I really believe he has never really mastered the craft of economy. He never has mastered making a point effectively without a whole bunch of chaff, if that makes sense. And I think this film is part of that. There were parts that could have been left on the cutting room floor. There were timing issues. It could have been a brilliant. Maybe if he had written it and maybe stepped back and given it to someone else to direct,
right?
It might have been
more.
Yeah,
or have someone else, or have someone tighten the script.
Right?
Can you actually imagine if this was a success?
Right.
He may have, instead of continuing his documentary career, he may have ended up trying to just be a comedic writer and film person, which that would have been
focus more on satire.
Totally different.
Oh my God! Can you imagine actually finding out that Michael Moore actually did Wag the Dog? So man, we did
it. Incidentally, we will do Wag the Dog one day. That is one I want to do, and I'd like to do the South Park movie. Actually, there are some that we. Well, an Animal House. We've talked about a lot of films tonight. We need to do.
Right.
Yeah, they're good films.
Doctor Strangelove and Life of Brian. Lots of good stuff there. But I do think that the film is definitely flawed. It could have been better. I think it does have its wonderful moments. I think it has its that didn't age as well as we would like moments. It had that was kind of, again, could have been left on the cutting room floor moments. and it is a shame, especially because it ended up being Candy's last film. Although I still have not seen Wagons East, but from what I've heard, it's probably better that this one came out last.
Yeah. That seems like
They're-
this seems like I feel like comparatively this would be the stronger. This would be the stronger of the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Wagons East also has the unfortunate
Yeah.
stigma of it actually being almost directly responsible for his death.
Right. That's
That
not a
doesn't
good thing.
help.
No, that's not a good thing.
So what did happen to John Candy?
Well, a lot of it was the fact that his family had always had heart conditions,
Mhm.
and his father actually died around the same time that he had died, like age-wise.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, when he was recording Wagons East,
Mhm.
they were doing a lot of hot stuff, and a lot of people had warned him, "Is like this is not good for you." And
Well, they were out. They were out in the mountains of Mexico, weren't they?
yeah, they were out there, yeah, and they were filming in super hot weather where they
Oh,
shouldn't have. And the conditions and him continuing to do that and wanting to get the takes right and all that ended up killing him in the end. It just
Oh
too much
my.
strain on him. So I
Yeah.
mean, he was a really good actor in a lot of ways. It's really sad to have lost him as a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me about that. I just knew that he died, but I didn't know how he died.
Mm-hmm.
That's a revelation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a few big names who went. You could particular films can be tied in part to it.
Like the Batman movie for what's his name, the guy that played the Joker.
Oh, Heath
Oh,
Ledger.
Ledger,
Well, yeah.
He literally died.
Technically,
Oh my god!
Wasn't
that
the
was
Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus the
he
last
was-
one?
he was filming the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, but he filmed that like directly after filming the Joker. And I think he actually, if I remember correctly, I think he was alternating. I think he was doing scenes from one and then scenes from the other. And I think he actually did die before he completed the role of the Joker, but they had enough to finish. But the Parnassus, I give Gilliam credit for ingenuity, the way that he managed to salvage that role. Terry Gilliam has had absolutely terrible luck as a director. But yeah, that was maybe not one where the role killed Ledger, but it certainly was a contributing factor from what I hear.
Yeah, Ledger's
Yeah.
trying to deal with himself, killed
Yeah.
himself.
Non-sleep,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
shady, and literally,
Right.
that's a shame because he really, like I said, he literally
Right.
I was on the edge of my seat. So this guy came out of no from a Knight's Tale from some dorky guy.
Right.
Yes, so my
Or actually, you need to go further back to 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yep.
Oh.
And he did have some great roles along the way. I mean, he did have that role in Monsters Ball, and he did have the a previous Terry Gilliam role. People like to crap all over the Brothers Grimm, but it actually wasn't a bad film, and Ledger himself was great in it.
He was
But-
also in The Four Feathers, which was a remake of an earlier film. I like
Yeah, I was kind of bored by that. I mean, it was all right, but I was kind of bored by it. That also had Kate Hudson, didn't it?
I believe so.
That kept me entertained. Anyway,
I just like the idea of the fact that he had revenge against the people who like set out against him, and he gave them.
right. I mean, it was a good premise. It was good. It was a gorgeous film. It was a gorgeous film. I'll give it that. But anyway, I never saw the original. I need to.
But
But,
we talk about special
should-
effects and music.
Yeah,
there was a
super
lot,
effects heavy film.
Yeah.
Oh, they had some
Here's
explosions and stuff.
There were some explosions.
And there was a lot of good production design wise.
Yeah.
There were a lot of
Right.
cool locations. I feel like we forget a lot when we think about it, that we forget to talk about the production design.
Yeah.
And we just go directly to those particular effects. But yeah, there was a lot of good production design on the film.
yeah.
Yeah. Could have been better, but it was good.
Some good shots
I mean-
of the Toronto skyline. One of the
Right.
one of the few feature films I've seen that actually acknowledges that Toronto exists. Because so many movies and TV shows are filmed up there, but are set somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we know Toronto exists. It's the capital of Canada.
Oh, geez. So from here on out, they've got to make sure that anything set in Toronto is filmed in Ottawa. Is that how that works?
Exactly. You know.
Well, as far as you mentioned the music, we already talked about that one scene where they couldn't remember any lyrics,
Lyrics,
you
yes.
know, but the overall, I like
I like-
Michael Moore's use of music generally.
Actually, this was
And-
Elmer Bernstein. This was scored by Elmer Bernstein.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yep.
actually like the opening song.
Yes.
In this.
Yes.
So, I mean, I thought it was a very apt choice
Right.
when it comes to the music in this.
Yeah, what was that? God Bless America again.
Yeah,
Yes.
Tex Ritter.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then you had a handful of others scattered throughout. Trying to
Actually,
remember.
think of it. So you were talking about Animal House. With Elmer Bernstein scoring, there's your connection.
One of the songs on the, according to IMDb, one of the songs on the soundtrack was Anne Murray's Snowbird.
There you go.
There you go. But yeah, it was. Overall, I do like the music in it. I thought that was well used.
All right.
Yep.
So now I think we can get to favorites.
Favorites.
I think
Yes.
so. Yeah.
All right, I'll go around. I'll go same order as first impression. So, Brandon, favorites.
Well, there are some definite favorites as we go along because there were, in my opinion, the movie was best in moments, but not as a whole.
Agreed.
I mean, like, I don't know. I guess that whole start, because it kind of set the scene where they're talking about the police getting getting more money to drag out the dead bodies
Yes.
than just talk the people down. And he's sitting there trying to get himself together with all the duct tape, and he can't get himself in because he's incompetent doing it. And they're just yelling, "Jump, jump!" I don't know. Maybe it's because I've got dark sense of humor because it's part of my work. Not yelling "jump," but doing the opposite. But yes, I don't know. Something about that did just make me crack up a bit.
Okay, and Jake, what about you? Favorites?
I've already mentioned a lot of them. Again, it's one of these things where there's a lot of little pieces. There's a lot of lines scattered about here and there. The gentleman, this is no time to think. That was a good little line there. And the some of those lines on the newscast where they're talking about the Canadian menace. If I had to single out one single part, it probably would be Honey being named the NRA Humanitarian of the Year. Honestly, that would probably be my favorite moment. But there's a lot of little moments, and again, it's kind of disappointing that it didn't cohere to a bigger, great moment, but still. Yeah. Oh, and the whole all I said was beer sucks. Canadian beer sucks. That was just a fun, that was a fun moment. That was probably my favorite John Candy moment in the whole movie. Yeah.
All right, Dave, favorites.
I would have to say that the Kathy Bates tackle was one of my first. It just reminded me of when she tackled her husband at the very end. It was just, and then I would have to say, the candy stripe nurses. For some reason, that whole thing, when she wakes up with all these giant ass teddy bears and shit, and she's trying to figure out where the fuck she is, and
Right.
all of a sudden these two kids just walk up and tell her that she's going to get a kidney transplant, and that they didn't think she needed nurses until 2006. It was like that whole thing, and then she ties them up and goes off like Rambo. So it's like it's a funny ass moment there. Oh, and the old couple. I just gotta kick out when the lights went out. The old lady was like, "Hey, honey, I could get used to this," and the husband's like, "Really?"
Yeah, oh yeah, where they're like hogtied to the chairs. Yeah, that was funny. I do want to also mention that we were talking about preconceived notions, like what we bring to it from the other, again with Michael Moore and with John Candy. I do want to reiterate that again. I know Rhea Perlman primarily from Carla Tortelli on Cheers, and that just colors her character completely. When she wakes up in the hospital, her reactions, I could see Carla having those same reactions. Yeah. She's just a little more. She might have been Carla if Carla had stuck with Nick. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Roger, favorites.
Oh, that's easy, man. That was the United States muddying, mudslinging, tear down Canada, beat down advertisements and media blitz, and make them feel like they're something from hell. And it was funny. I actually watched that twice. It's like,
right.
They're killing children. They're eating their puppies, or oh my god, this is rich stuff. But yeah, that was for me. That was easily the best part of it. The rest of it, I kind of agree with the other people here. That's kind of like skits. You pick out your skit you like the most.
Yeah,
that was the part I picked out. I said, this is something I wish that Moore had done more in the movie, and kind of went down that path instead of going back and forth with all the other kind of skits.
Actually, yeah, he could have, like, being a documentary filmmaker, he could have just created a mockumentary about the Canadian menace, and that probably would have been brilliant.
Actually, that would probably been hilarious.
Probably something that would have been interesting to watch.
Right.
All right, and I have to agree. Yeah, there's like a lot of good. It's like, it works. This movie works in vignette. It has a lot of great vignettes. That's how it works in that way. For me, I would have to narrow it down, but I would have to narrow it down to three moments. The first, this is actually my number one, is Dan Aykroyd's cameo. The second one would be the hockey game. And ensuing and the riot that ensues from Candy saying Canadian beer sucks, and the third would probably be when they're driving to Toronto, singing "Born in the USA," but they only know the chorus.
Well,
Right.
those are the only words to the song, aren't they?
Well, that's what Ronald Reagan thought.
Actually, that makes you wonder a particular scenario. Given the cost of music rights, wouldn't it have been interesting if Moore had approached Springsteen and said, or EMI, whoever actually controls the stuff, be like, we want to use "Born in the USA." Nope, no dice. What can I get for this much? You can get the title.
And although he did, I believe what he did use in Roger and Me, he did use what was it? My Hometown. Or no, he didn't use it. It was but yeah, My Hometown did appear in Roger and Me. Interestingly.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Alrighty. Is that it for everyone?
Yep, that's it.
I suppose so.
Okay. Let's go around and do our outros. Then let's start with you, Roger.
What is an outro?
An outro.
Tell us about yourself.
Tell us about yourself. Yeah.
Oh, my name is Roger. I sell cars at Hampton Hyundai in Florida, and I presently run Animes and Collections and Company. It's a collection type of Facebook group that encourages collecting of all kinds. I must admit, there's a lot of people that got into it now. They have bigger collections. It's pretty cool. I'm presently aiming to have the biggest anime collection in the state of Florida.
Very good.
Alrighty. Why don't we go with you, Forrest? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
All right, I'm Forrest Bennett. I am an independent film producer based in Long Island, New York. I also do a little bit of acting. I have one short film I recently acted in a short film that's coming called The Adventures of Cletus and Bob that's coming out soon. And right now I'm also working with writer director Bobby Heckman on a Friday the 13th fan film called Victim No More.
Wow.
And I've got a few other some other projects in the pipeline. Other projects in the pipeline at the moment. Also, I also am part of another podcast called Script Club, where we do dramatic table readings of unproduced movie scripts.
Okay, very cool. Going over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, SeptumSin is SeptumSin versus the world. We have a lot of cool stuff going on our page. We all about that physical media stuff. Of course, we've decided to just minimalize our involvement on what's new coming out, reducing it mostly to slideshows. We looked at the views and we said, well, we could utilize that time doing other things, but we still do our pickups with our in-person. We do a few extra things, some reviews. Matter of fact, I have a new review of Shut Up and Get in the Car, the newest Anhedenia film and my Anhedenia project. So I do a short review for that with a longer one to come. And then there is a couple other things that are coming out this week, but I can't think of them. But one of the big projects that we are working on right now is we are the first YouTube page to host our film awards. My hope is that we will expand as time goes on. Different pages will host it. But we were all sick and tired of those pretentious award shows with their politics and their exclusions. So we're trying to...
Yeah, we want our own politics and exclusions. Thank you very much.
Exactly. So, so we're doing our own, and we've already gotten through the nomination process. And we have a full nomination group. You can see that reveal on, Monday's a show. Of course, so now the arduous task goes towards the actual voting, which will be in mid-August. And depending on how things go, maybe late August, but hopefully mid-August. And we're going to be taking each Monday, we're going to be taking 21 of the nominated films, the 84 nominated films. That includes short films in the number, by the way, but still.
Right.
That's a lot of films. And we're going to take all 21, all 84 of them, and we're going to go over them in 21 movie chunks, doing a brief rundown of each film. I'm going to try and make sure I see all of them before I vote. I encourage most of the people in the Academy to do so as well, or see as many as they can. And then, and of course, if anybody out there is interested in being an Academy member when it comes to voting rights for the films, you just need to let me know, and or let Jake know, or anybody here know, and we'll be glad to send you a ballot. The voting is due in mid-ish August. Finally, of course, I want to congratulate Roger for becoming a regular crew member on the Inside Movies Galore crew.
Thank
He's
you.
going to be there, and we managed to decide on our theme for the month of August, which was your theme, Jake, about the asylums. What was it called?
Asylum in August?
Yeah.
Or
Tell us a
August in
little
the
bit.
Asylum, sorry.
Tell us a
August
little
in-
bit about that theme, so that people know
Oh,
what it's
so
going to be about.
that's what got
Asylum
picked?
Studios?
Yep, that's what
Okay.
got picked.
So, very nice. Okay, so August in the Asylum is a film is going to be a month where we celebrate films about crazy people. Well, not exactly, but like basically films that take place in a mental hospital, that take place in an asylum, if you will, or I suppose we can open it up to films about a group of people from the asylum, maybe as well. But we want to keep it kind of tied to that for consistency. So, yeah.
All
Well,
right.
one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets could probably go for that.
Yes, Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah. Okay.
That was,
Well,
I was
give me-
actually that was going
We'd have to cover two first, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
Jacob's Ladder?
About
What was
what?
that?
About Jacob's Ladder.
Was there an asylum
Yeah.
in that? I can't remember. I know that he was dealing with PTSD, but I can't remember.
I feel like there was, but I can't remember either.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. But like,
speaking,
yeah, I can think of a few that definitely that could work. But
speaking of films, we still have one more to go in our John Candy month.
Oh,
So
yeah.
next week, you
Mhm,
will
mhm.
need to join us at 7 Eastern Standard Time, or 6 o'clock Milwaukee time, as we discuss Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the John Hughes classic. Which I'm kind of sad that we're not discussing it around Thanksgiving, but hey, at least we're getting it in.
I am too, but that's okay.
The Swan Song, if I ever saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be awesome.
Alrighty.
Uh-huh.
And my name is David Streggy. I am one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. I also welcome Roger to the main cast of the Inside Movies Galore crew. Congrats. And we have fun here. We talk about many different films, silent film on up, and we enjoy talking to each other a lot.
Actually, we do indeed. Dave, I actually didn't do my outro, but I just want to say real quick a shout out to Dave and Roger for joining us last night for our big reveal of the nominations, for their assistance in that. And it'll be good
Go
time.
ahead, say exactly who you are before I continue with mine.
Oh, I'm just Kotobukijake. I'm the co-host on SeptumSin versus the World, and very sleep deprived from tallying up all those votes. But looking forward to what the next couple months will bring.
Psycho Ape is going to take home the gold. Every category it's going to win.
Well, Forrest, if you haven't seen the video yet, I'll tell you this. Watch Clementine and you'll be set.
All right.
I've actually seen it already today, so hey.
I have not.
Neither have I.
Yeah.
But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I go on about my own thoughts and feelings on films. tell all of you about films that you probably never even heard about. So, but I also go on and do my own video pickups from time to time, which I am planning on doing a big ass video momentarily once I get a couple of more items. And I need to get back into to doing some more reviews. It's been some time. It's just work has been kind of a bitch. So, in any case, thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. And Canadian beer sucks.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
All right. All right.